call this workshop meeting into session. And colleagues, you know, as usual, we'll just go through each item, and if you've got something, stop me. And Superintendent, if you've got anything, just let us know, okay? All right, of course, the first item is call to order. Second will be the approval of the agenda. At this time, there are no changes. Section 3, recognitions, there are none. Section 4.1, appointment of the assistant principal to 10-month at Lewis School, recommended by the superintendent. Section 5, public comment. We don't have anything at this time. Section 6, committee and staff reports. 6.1 is in-county travel paid for July 2024, presented by Ms. Perry. And then 6.2 is out-of-county travel paid for July 2024, also presented by Ms. Perry. All right, Section 7, consent agenda. At this time, there are no changes. 7.1 will be the approval of the consent agenda. 7.2, approval of the minutes of the workshop meeting of August the 12th, 2024, and minutes of the regular meeting August the 12th, 2024, recommended by the superintendent. 7.3 will be the appropriation of District 1 School Board member capital outlay funds to Shalimar Elementary School for clear touch panels in the amount of $17,998, presented by myself and recommended by the superintendent. 7.4,
Excuse me, can I ask
yeah,
you-
sure, go ahead.
Okay, Mr. Chambers, we talked about this before. Is there still an initiative to get those panels going, kind of district-wide?
So there are. So we're looking at the Clear Touch panels as one portion of our technology plan for the district. And this past year, we focused at the high school level as well as some middle schools and elementary. But specifically, we were looking at algebra, geometry, and biology. Some of those teachers already had Clear Touch panels, so Mrs. Lightbourne and her team brought it down to some middle school and some third grade areas where it was a focus area. It is going to take some time to get Clear Touches throughout the school district, so your support as we continue to go through this year is greatly appreciated, but we are funding Clear Touch panels, budgeting Clear Touch panels, and making it part of our technology plan.
Okay, thanks. So between the board and the district, we'll meet in the middle maybe and get that done.
Yes,
Thanks.
ma'am, and again, the assistance is greatly appreciated.
Yes, sir.
How long does it take to get one once we decide we want to get one for a school?
I'm going to need some assistance on that one.
Mr. Heinle, good to see you, sir, board. We order those Clear Touch panels in. We've deployed 60 of those. Got a text from Mr. Mitchell that 44 were remaining, and he completed all those deployments last week. So all the teachers have those. It's about a week to process through our budgeting piece, and then about another week or two delivery, and then we rented a box truck and sent those out.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to comment, at the Carver Hill, I have an office there, and I was there one day, and on the back dock, all these Clear Touches were sitting on the back dock. There was, like you said, 60 of them, and they were out there in that heat trying to separate them and all that stuff.
All right, thank you.
Dr. White, if you don't
Yeah,
mind, just
sure,
one additional
sure.
comment. We're also looking, as you know, we're looking in the future at our new seat management contract as well. Also looking at it as being a portion of that, so we're investigating that process additionally.
All right, and of course, Superintendent, you know, when these principals send in their request, I take a look at them, and every time I can, I try to facilitate what it is that they say that they need, and of course, in this case, it was a Shalimar, and I appreciate the district looking over those and then ultimately concurring with that, and then making the same recommendation. So thank you for that.
Yes, sir.
All right, 7.4, appropriation of District 1 School Board member capital outlay funds to Northwood Elementary School for classroom flooring in the amount of $5,034.59, presented by myself and recommended by the superintendent. 7.5, appropriation of District 3 School Board member capital outlay funds to Northwood Elementary School for classroom flooring in the amount of $4,861.82, presented by Ms. Evanchek and recommended by the superintendent. 7.6, appropriation of District 4 School Board member capital outlay funds to Northwood Elementary for classroom flooring in the amount of $5,564.42, presented by Mr. Bryant and recommended by the superintendent for approval. 7.7, invoices to be approved for payment, presented by Ms. Perry and recommended by the superintendent. 7.8, payroll warrant register and accounts payable warrant register totaling $25,976,258.23. Self-health insurance claims and fees totaling $3,243,336.54, and bank transfers totaling $0 for July 2024, presented by Ms. Perry and recommended by the superintendent. 7.9, sole source number 25-05, Trimark, presented by Mr. Wyndham, Program Director Purchasing, and recommended by the superintendent. 7.10, renewal of ITB 20-01 epoxy flooring, DW, presented by Mr. Wyndham, Program Director Purchasing, and recommended by the superintendent. 7.11, tag on bid purchase over $50,000, Johnson Lancaster and Associates Incorporated, presented by Mr. Wyndham and recommended by the superintendent for approval. 7.12, tag on bid purchase over $50,000, EMCI Wireless, presented by Mr. Wyndham and recommended by the superintendent. 7.13, tag on bid purchase over $50,000, Playmore Recreational Products and Services, presented by Mr. Wyndham and recommended by the superintendent. 7.14, exempted purchase over $50,000, Sunbelt Staffing, presented by Mr. Wyndham, Program Director Purchasing, and recommended by the superintendent. 7.15, agreement to grant Florida Power and Light Company an underground easement at Northwood Elementary School, presented by Dr. Smith and recommended by the superintendent. 7.16, agreement to grant Florida Power and Light Company an underground easement at Richburg School, presented by Dr. Smith and recommended by the superintendent. 7.17, self-help project improvements to baseball facility at Fort Walton Beach High School, presented by Dr. Smith and recommended by the superintendent.
And Dr. White?
Yes, ma'am.
May I just do a shout out to
Sure.
Mr. Jared Boswell,
Okay.
who is helping with this project.
very
He is a
good.
prominent leader, community member. He's also a Viking alumni, and Mr. Boswell, along with some other community members, are helping with this project. And we greatly appreciate this assistance to help us update these facilities. So
Yeah.
thank you, Mr. Boswell.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. And of course, those self-help projects are important
Oh,
because
absolutely.
they're the ones that they're doing themselves, so to speak.
Absolutely.
So,
And you're looking at about $17,000, I think, right here. I think I saw that.
Yes, ma'am.
And you said $17,000. So Mr.
Yeah.
Boswell and his connections with other
Wow.
community members, so we greatly, greatly
Oh, yeah, that's
appreciate
great.
this for our students.
That's great. That'll help those kids. All right, 7.18, sale and disposal of surplus property, presented by Mr. Bolton and recommended by the superintendent. 7.19, contract lease renewal agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County and the Okaloosa County Board of County Commissioners for the Library Cooperative Courier Service, presented by Mr. Mitchell and recommended by the superintendent. 7.20, request to advertise a public hearing for revision of school board policies in Chapter 4, Students, presented by Ms. Lamb, Director, Student Services, and recommended by the superintendent.
And I have a question on
Sure.
this one. I'm sorry, it might be my data question.
No,
but
it's good.
Ms. Lamb, I guess this would be Ms. Lamb. On this 4.21, about the recognitions, and maybe Mr. Chambers, you may know, I'm sure you do, sorry. I see that if, what we're wanting to do is that it's going to be state competitions and national, international competitions. What about, and there is, I see a process that they are to go to the principal, and then the principal will submit it to superintendent's office. What about those community, like Change for Children? What was the other one I was thinking of? The Ben Anderson's.
Yeah.
How do those, will they
So
just go
that's a
straight to
that's a
you?
separate process. So
Okay.
they come straight to us, or they may even go to the board chairman, and then we get with Mary.
Okay.
That's a separate process. This is more to streamline
For the
who
schools.
student-wise comes before us, because we want to recognize all of
Oh.
our students, but sometimes it might be Well, I'll just say it this way. As you know, this board has made a stance where it is either a state championship or a national championship. So anything other than that, we might recognize at the school level, because it's definitely worthy, but what becomes before the board, just trying to put a little bit more criteria so folks know
No, I think this
on the
is
front
good.
end.
It's needed. Okay, and like you said, we do want to recognize all these individuals, and we really appreciate these community projects, and through your office or through the board, they can, okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we have a date for this public hearing?
We have to run an ad. It runs 28 days prior to the date, so we pick the date based upon when that ad can get into the paper.
All right. Anything else, colleagues? All right. Let's move on to 7.21. Agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County and Okaloosa County Comprehensive Head Start, submitted by Ms. Ard, ESC Director, Exceptional Student Education, and recommended by the Superintendent. 7.22, Cooperative Agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County and the Early Learning Coalition of the Emerald Coast, presented by Ms. Rebecca Held, Specialist, Student Services, and recommended by the Superintendent. 7.23, Hope Squad Program Agreement between Hope Squad Incorporated and the School District of Okaloosa County, presented by Ms. Terry Schroeder and recommended by the Superintendent for approval.
And
I
I'm
have a question.
Okay, you go ahead. We may have the same questions.
Okay. So I remember when we took on the Hope Squad, Dr. Kelly really brought that program to us. So, and I don't know if Ms. Schroeder wants to come up, but what has changed? And there seems like there's been some change in the program and how it's being, I just want to get a comprehensive view of where we have it and how it's being run, if you don't mind, please.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you, because I have some questions also.
Good morning, Ms. Schroeder.
Good morning.
Hi.
I'll just say from the beginning that Mrs. Schroeder will give specifics. I think we're excited to take on Hope Squad as part of a district initiative. Mrs. Schroeder and her group, they've done a great job. She has some folks that are now trained to be able to help deliver this model, but Mrs. Schroeder is more intimately involved on a daily basis.
Yes, sir. So Hope Squad is, it came to us back in 2020. We started off during the COVID years, which was very challenging, but since then it has grown, and we started off small, and now we have Hope Squads in every school. Our elementary schools are 4th and 5th grade. Then we have at middle school and then high school squads. The changes we found over the years, we were partnering with a community partner. The challenge with doing that is we didn't have as much control as we would have liked to have had. The advisor training was a little more challenging when you have somebody in the community doing that, and so we didn't have a whole lot of, again, just the control, knowing exactly what our advisors are being trained in, knowing exactly who is being trained. So this past summer, we sent 4 of our mental health counselors out to Utah to become master trainers with this program, which is formally what Dr. Kelly was as a master trainer. So we now have 4 of our own that are working through that process. So they have to be trainers for a year, and then they receive from Hope Squad the title of master trainer. So we will be training, we as the Okaloosa County School District will be training our own advisors, so that therefore we have more control over what is being taught, how they're being trained, and who's actually being trained. So that's some of the nuances of the situation with Hope Squad.
So in other words, instead of going with a community partner, we have it in-house now.
Yes, ma'am.
Which you have it over, and then we have the master trainers.
Yes,
Now,
ma'am.
I'm looking on here, do we not have to, so does that mean we don't have to pay a fee to be associated anymore? Because I see this
There's no fee.
on here, we don't have a fee.
For the 24-25 school year, there is not.
Okay.
One of the benefits of this agreement that we're looking at with you all today is to become demonstration sites.
Uh-huh.
So one of the benefits of that is we don't have to pay to have additional people retrained. So let's say this year a trainer decides, they do it for a year and they decide they don't want to continue to be an advisor. And originally, you would have to pay to have somebody else trained. When we become demonstration sites, we don't have to pay to replace our trainers. And there's a pretty hefty fee attached to that. So the benefit to that is we get some monetary benefit. We are recalibrating this year going to this model. So the benefit of that is we are not paying fees for the curriculum. this year. So I suspect our agreement will change a little bit next year. We will probably have to pay some maintenance fees next year. But this year, for the whole 24-25, we don't have to pay any fees because of that recalibration process through Hope Squad in general.
Okay, so not even to use that, the name Hope Squad, we don't have to pay any kind of license or,
No,
anything like
ma'am.
that? Because
we have to
that.
follow their branding requirements if we
Yes.
use that.
Mhm.
But we have those requirements. Those are already in place and have been in place
Okay.
since we started.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Gardner?
Well, I see that on the requirements, it's talking about the Hope Squad, the advisors, the members to provide training, attendees, but it also mentions our parents.
Mhm.
So are we inviting our parents so that they're well aware of
Yes,
what's
ma'am.
we're training, what we're doing? And
Yes, ma'am. Every student who is a member of Hope Squad are members of Hope Squad with parent consent.
Okay.
So they receive a parent packet, they receive information from the advisors, again, that we train, and this is a process that Hope Squad has had in place. So any student that is a member are members with parent consent.
Okay, great.
So
'Cause,
that they
we-
are familiar.
I mean, it's a difficult, dark subject, and we're talking about 4th and 5th graders, so I
Mhm.
want to make sure that our parents are very aware of.
And to clarify, the dark subject, for our
And that's
fourth
probably
and
not the best term.
I understand.
Came with.
And that is a concern for some parents. And what we do with our 4th and 5th graders is it's really a culture building. It's helping them learn how to be kind to each other. It's teaching them how to help prevent bullying in their schools. It's teaching them how to be upstanders, so to
Okay,
speak.
okay.
We really don't talk about suicide with 4th and 5th graders. We don't talk about the dark stuff with them,
Mhm.
although we do know that it is a reality.
Oh, absolutely.
But so we try to help them in the prevention phase with the 4th and 5th grade students. Is
And so
that-
by having our own advisors here, I guess those advisors will be previewing the materials
Yes,
that are
ma'am.
being used. I know that we've got a situation that we were looking at something that came from outside the
Yes, ma'am.
district. So those are all being previewed.
Yes, ma'am.
For the Florida.
Yes, ma'am. And I've already
Awesome.
been in contact with Hope Squad about that.
And yeah, and not only on the curriculum, not only are we previewing and have previewed, but we've made it very clear to Hope Squad of the expectations for Florida and
That's
this school district.
Very good.
That's good.
And that will be
Yep.
pretty heavily covered in our advisor training when we do that. And we do have advisor trainings. Again, every one of our advisors are going to be retrained this year. In September, we'll break it up, and elementary advisors will have a day of training, middle school advisors will have a day of training, and high school advisors will have a day of training. Again, that's something that we have more control over. In the past, it was all advisors at one time. We are way more focusing that, and we will instruct those advisors as a reminder of what Florida curriculum and requirements.
And I just have two things, Ms. Roder. I think
Yes,
it's
sir.
very good because this is a national program, and to pull it under our umbrella, so to speak, will certainly be advantageous to make sure that we comply with all the things the superintendent said in regards to Florida law.
Yes, sir.
Because it might be different than what may be promulgated through some kind of national program. So I think that's very good. And then second of all, because this is a formalized agreement that we're being asked to approve, I'd like to verify something that I already know, that Mr. McInnes, you've had the opportunity to look through this agreement. Is that right?
Yes, sir. In fact, there are a number of additional details on the bottom of the order sheet, and those are things I requested to be changed in the contract.
Excellent. Very good. All right, board, so it makes you feel a little bit better to know that our lawyers looked over it and
Right.
Absolutely.
we're good to go. All right.
I have one.
Yes, sir, Mr. Bryant.
So when we first started this program, I know Dr. Kelly was behind it, Mr. Chambers was behind it. We had a lot of great feedback from the schools and all that, but over the years, I personally have noticed some schools are more into it than others. Maybe this could be for the superintendent. What is your expectation with the Hope Squad?
So a few things. So one, very much appreciate the community sponsor who helped spearhead this. Without that community sponsor, we probably wouldn't be where we are today, so I appreciate that. You look at community folks such as Eglin Federal Credit Union, who really stepped up to help fund this program and be a support. So very much appreciate all of that. I think Hope Squad being under Mrs. Schroeder And our mental health counselors, I think, has the ability to take it to another level. And the communication coming straight from Mrs. Schroeder's department to our schools, the ability in principal meetings to be able to share information. So I think that's, it's not a negative to anything in the past, but I think it's going to be a streamlined situation going forward. So a couple other things. So going back to Mrs. Gardner's statement, because you're absolutely correct, at the elementary level, it may not be appropriate to talk about suicide prevention and awareness. And it's been since the inception of this program that at the elementary level, it's about kindness. It's about how we treat each other. And then going up into secondary, then it's about training students who are a part of Hope Squads to not be counselors because they have a sponsor. It's about when students say something that could be harmful to themselves. What research says is most times the student will not say something, and then the student goes forward and tries to harm themselves, and sometimes successfully, then that student has to live with it, and it could have been prevented. So it's about teaching our students when something is concerning, there's concerning behavior, it's share it with your Hope Squad advisor. That Hope Squad advisor then gets with the mental health counselor, with the families, and then services are then provided to those students. This program, though we've been doing it since 2020, has already saved lives. And I think if it was one student, but there's been multiple students who said they wanted to harm themselves, and because there was a Hope Squad student who shared it with their advisor, that student's life was saved. So this is a layer of our mental health support that comes under student focused, that what we're trying to do in this district, and it's an important layer of what we're trying to do in this district.
And I like the idea that we're bringing it back, that we have the control, of,
And-
not
and-
the partnership sounds
And
strong.
secondary to that, in April, every one of our mental health counselors on our team were trained as well. So they know what's going on, and then they will be able to support those advisors out at those schools. While some of them may be advisors at their schools, they're not required to be, but we felt that it was important enough that they understood what is being taught to those students at those schools, so they can support that, and also support those advisors out there at those schools. So we're really trying to bring it back to under our mental health supports, and as Mr. Chambers said, student-focused.
So to go back to my question, so you're basically confident that we're going to have full participation amongst, because it is back in our house, you know, and with your leadership behind it, it's something we're going to, you know, make sure schools are doing.
And that is Mr. Chambers' expectation as well.
Every school has a
Every school has Hope Squad, as you know. It's also dependent on those who want to be a sponsor.
Sure.
Now, we have, there is a stipend that's associated with that as well. That's something that we wanted to place a focus on. But do we expect that every school has a Hope Squad? Absolutely. But it also is dependent on those who want to be a sponsor. But it's definitely a strong initiative of what we're doing.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right,
Thank you,
anything
Ms.
else?
Schroeder. Nice job.
Thanks, Ms. Schroeder.
Thank you.
All right, so that takes us through all the items on there, and so we now move to Section 8, Superintendent's Human Resources Recommendations. 8.1, Information Only, Employees on Administrative Leave, presented by Dr. Hale, Assistant Superintendent. And then 8.2, Information Only, Deferred Retirement Option Program, also presented by Dr. Hale, Assistant Superintendent. All right, 8.3, School Safety Department Staffing Restructure, presented by Dr. Hale and recommended by the Superintendent. And I know that, board members, you've talked to staff already about many of these items. All right, 8.4, Assistant Superintendent Operations Department Staffing Restructure, presented by Dr. Hale and recommended by the Superintendent. 8.5, Cleared Certification Requirements and Issuance of Contracts for the 24-25 school year, presented by Ms. Duron, Program Director, Professional Services, and recommended by the Superintendent. 8.6, Out-of-Field Report for the 2024-2025 school year, presented by Ms. Duron, Program Director, and recommended by the Superintendent. 8.7, Employment Separations, presented by Dr. Hale and recommended by the Superintendent. 8.8, personnel recommendations presented by Dr. Hale and recommended by the superintendent. 8.9, employee transfers presented by Dr. Hale and recommended by the superintendent. 8.10, reinstatement reimbursement of sick leave due to line of duty illness, injury, medical examination presented by Dr. Hale and recommended by the superintendent. And then 8.11, leave without pay presented by Dr. Hale, Assistant Superintendent, and recommended by the superintendent. Discussion agenda, no items there at this time. Section 10, 10.1, program status report by the board's representative to the construction program.
Dr. White,
Yes, sir.
I would just like to report that we do have a meeting coming up on September 9th.
All right.
I will not be at that meeting due to prior commitments with the Florida School Boards Association. We'll actually be in Washington, D.C. that particular day, that week. I have asked Ms. Gardner if she would sit on the committee, that particular committee, as she expressed interest one day maybe sitting in on a meeting, and
I was just kidding.
so.
Too late now.
I didn't think you'd take me
You
up
want us
on
to
it.
hold a vote?
So I did reach out to Mr. Meyer and Mr. McGinnis just to make sure everything was okay, and Ms. Gardner will
She
be
didn't
giving a
mean it.
report.
I will.
So
All
that
right.
will be that.
All right, got it.
You just want to tell us you're going to be in Washington. Because you're always traveling around, which is great.
All right.
Appreciate it.
10.2, authorization for professional services agreement from CMI for price validation for program number 6, task order number 35, New Crestview K-8 School, Destin Elementary School, and Baker School additions, presented by Dr. Smith and recommended by the superintendent.
So, Dr. White, I do have a
Yes, sir.
question regarding the new K-8 school in Crestview. And over the weekend, I saw where there was some chatter, and of course, we don't always go by with what we see on social media. But I do want to ask a question of, we're getting ready to break ground on that school. The projected opening date is the 2026. What is the contingency plan if FDOT doesn't get their part done and all that stuff? Is there a, I personally believe that our section of the road I know is already done where the school is, and the bridge going over the railroad tracks will be done. So is there anything hindering us from maybe not having a 2026 opening?
Everything right now that we've had talks with Florida Department of Transportation and the county and the city is moving in the right direction. I would not anticipate anything that would get us hung up. We are about to break ground next month out there clearing the property.
Right.
Now, the time of construction, 2 years, it's quick,
Yeah.
but I don't think that the road's going to get in the way.
I meet with the county every 2 weeks in their staff meeting on the road construction. Everything's looking good. There's nothing that seems that would hold it back. The only thing is the bridge, but that only affects the access from the north side. There will
Right.
still be 3 accesses. From the south side is way ahead of schedule and doing very well, but the bridge is actually on schedule too.
Yeah, I mean, I see it just about every day, so I'm not overly concerned about that part, but I am concerned regarding FDOT's situation with that roundabout at Antioch, and I know that's something we're going to have to address with, once they start the work on that in our traffic situation over there, so.
That's it on the agenda for our next meeting in 2 weeks.
And Ms. Gardner will tell us all about that, so.
I'm going to try.
So I have a question. Are these 3 projects more or less going to be simultaneously started? In other words, we're going to start.
Yes, ma'am. The K-8 will start first, Destin shortly behind. Baker will not take as long, so it will start last.
Okay, but
With all of them being done August of '26.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. White.
Yes,
Of course,
sir.
we're going to have to eventually talk about a name.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so that takes us through those items and brings us to Mr. Attorney, your business, sir.
No report this morning.
Thank you, sir. Superintendent, your business.
Yes, sir. Do have a decent bit of information to share this morning with the school board and with our community. And I want to start by saying that we have with us the Niceville City Manager this morning, Mr. David Deach, who was gracious to come before us today. As you know, we were notified that the city of Niceville was going to have school zone speed cameras and a few locations. And we've asked, and I should say, Mr. Deach asked to come forward today, and we agreed to be able to update the board on Niceville's decision to put these speed zone cameras into place at particular school zones. So, Mr. Deach, if you'd come forward.
Welcome, Mr. Deach.
Good morning, sir, and good morning
Thank you.
to everyone. As Superintendent Chambers said, I would just like to provide a brief overview of the school zone speed camera program that Niceville has implemented and where we currently are. So back in fiscal year, and I'm going to assume that you have my package before you or you've had the opportunity to review it, so I'm not going to go into great detail, but the state of Florida has authorized school zone speed cameras in order to enhance the safety and security of our students as they travel to and from school. Back in August of '23, we conducted a speed study here in Niceville at 4 different locations. The results of that speed study indicated that we had over 5,800 speeders going 11 miles or more in a school zone during the blinking light period, 5,800 per day. And so as a result of that, the City Council and I were very concerned about the safety and security of our students as they travel to and from school. I note on your logo here that safe schools is a core value or a guiding principle for the school board and for Superintendent Chambers and his staff. Well, while they are creating safe schools while the kids are on their property, it's the city of Niceville and ultimately my responsibility to ensure their safety as they're traveling to and from school. Having 5,800 speeders going 11 miles an hour or more in our school zones while the lights are flashing was unacceptable to the city council. And so in January, the city council, and I wrote the ordinance, city council approved the ordinance for the installation of the school zone speed cameras. We contracted with a company, Ultimate, in February of '24. Ultimate has installed one of these cameras outside the post office on Palm Boulevard behind Ruckel, but it's right there in front of the post office. They are currently working with the Florida Department of Transportation on the camera that's going to go on Parton right next to Ruckel. And then we are working with the Florida Department of Transportation to explore putting in school zones on 85 in front of Edge Elementary School and on Highway 20 in front of the high school. As you may recall, there was a school zone on 20 in front of the high school that was removed when the Florida Department of Transportation repaved that road. And so now, I just had a conversation with members of the Florida Department of Transportation, the local contingent. They are going to do a study both on 85 and on Highway 20 to determine whether or not a school zone is warranted in those 2 locations. That study will happen this month. They wanted to wait for the school year to get a little bit more mature because there's always a lot of craziness and hectic traffic the first week or 2. So after it calms down, they are going to do a study to determine whether or not school zones are even warranted in those locations. If they are, they will come back to me and let me know, and we will develop a plan to reinstall school zones on those 2 highways. During the course of this project, so let me continue. So once Ultimate gets the permit from the Florida Department of Transportation for the camera on Parton Drive next to Ruckel, they will install that camera as well. When both of those cameras are operational, they will both go live at the same time. After they go live, they will go live for a 60-day warning period. The state statute requires us to give drivers 30 days notice, but we are going to do 60. And along with that, we will have a very extensive education campaign to let people know these school zone cameras are in force, they are active, and they will be fined in the event they are traveling 11 miles or more in a school zone during the flashing times. The City of Niceville's plan is that these cameras will only be active during the drop-off period and the pickup periods in the mornings and in the afternoons. They will not work on weekends, school holidays, summer break, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I anticipate that that camera on Parton will probably be installed by the end of the calendar year. And again, once they do, there'll be a 60-day warning period, and then they will go live. If a school zone is determined by the Florida Department of Transportation to be warranted on Highway 20 in front of the high school and 85 in front of Edge, those will be installed, and then the cameras will follow. So that's kind of the status. I do want to emphasize that this is a City of Niceville effort. At no time during the speed study, the contracting, the installation, the permitting, did I engage Superintendent Chambers or staff about this program. This is entirely a City of Niceville program to, again, protect the safety and security of our children as they travel to and from school. That's all I have for the school board at this time, barring any questions.
Any questions, colleagues? Superintendent?
I have a couple of statements. So one, appreciate you taking the time to come over here and just
Yes, sir.
clarify the speed zones. We've always had a wonderful partnership with the city of Niceville, as we do with our other cities across Okaloosa County. I think that's something that we're blessed to have. I would make a request that in the future, if we have a study that shows, for example, that there are 5,800 cars going 11 miles an hour or more, that we would know. And I think the important thing there is our principals do a great job of communicating with our families and them also putting out information. So I think that would be just continuing that partnership,
For
which
sure.
I appreciate.
For sure.
And then the other thing is the two studies that are going on right now that says if warranted to have these speed zones, have we been made aware of those two studies?
I just informed you, sir. They haven't started yet. I just had the conversation with the Florida Department of Transportation last week to determine the process going forward. And so they may come back and say that they're not warranted. I don't know, but they're going to do the study and let us know.
And I appreciate that notification. And I would also just say respectfully, if Mr. Meyer, if you'd get with Mr. Deach, because on the Department of Transportation side, I think us even being together
For
on
sure.
that's important. And I think these speed zones over here, in terms of the blinking lights, for us, if they were considering taking those away, I would not be for that.
Right.
The one over at Niceville that was taken away was done without our acknowledgement.
Right.
And so, again, I think that safety of our students, obviously, there's that partnership, but it's what we live every day.
That's right. And just a question for the attorney now, Mr. McInnes. I think I know the answer, but the jurisdiction of these roads and highways, is that under the school district or the school board?
No, sir.
Right. And that falls under the state? and
State
under
or the city, county,
jurisdictions?
depending on who has the roadway.
Yeah, and sometime it might be interesting to just look at the number of different jurisdictions that the school district falls under, because we span the entire county.
Yes, sir.
And that's a whole bunch of them. And
Jurisdiction's complicated, sir, in the city of Niceville.
Yeah, I bet.
And we have
I'm
state
sure.
roads that we get blamed for, and county residents that live in the city, and
That's right.
Blue Water Bay residents who think they're Niceville residents, and so it's a hodgepodge of just wonderful residents,
Yeah.
but just because everybody has a
Yeah.
Niceville address
And
doesn't
we
mean you're a
get blamed
Niceville
for some of
resident.
that same stuff.
Yes,
So
sir.
we want to make sure that we all know who's in charge of what. And Mr. Bryant, you have something?
Yes, sir. So, on the package there, and I know this for, other programs that they have out there with these cameras and
Yes,
all.
sir.
It is actually, could be a revenue stream for the district, for the school district.
Yeah, yes, sir, it could. So under the state statute, $12 of every fine will go to the school district for safety purposes. The state doesn't really specify what safety is, but it can only be used for safety reasons.
Right.
Now, there's the potential that both the city of Niceville and the school board and school district could generate revenue from these cameras. Again, that is not the city of Niceville's goal. I genuinely hope that this program generates $0, because what that means is people have slowed down in our school zones and protected our children. That's the goal of the program, to protect our children. I live in the Preserve neighborhood up on North Parton, so my drive to work is about 90 seconds. But in that 90 seconds, I always pass during the school day at least half a dozen kids walk into Ruckle Middle School. And then, of course, in the afternoons, we're from my office, those kids from Ruckle and the high school pour across Barton, and they're sitting in the park in front of my office, and they're in the library, but they're pouring across Barton Drive. Our goal, the city council's goal, and my goal is to protect our kids as they're going to and from school. So I genuinely hope, sir, that it doesn't make any money. Now,
No.
human nature being what it is, I know it's going to.
Right.
But I desperately hope it doesn't make a penny.
No, and I'm with you there. I mean, I'd like to see it be 0 too, but I think the public should know that their fines, how it's going to be divvied up. It's not
Correct.
just like going one way.
Correct.
It could go to multiple sources, and school safety, of course, is very paramount in our district. It's actually the top thing that we push every year. But
Yes, sir.
I was also really surprised to see the numbers from Edge, because I come down Highway 85 all the time, and I've honestly never seen a Niceville police officer there or anybody, but obviously y'all are out there, because I see there's some infractions being written up there. But
Yes, sir.
I mean, people just, I guess, have always been used to the fact they see the flashing light, but there really was no consequence to it.
Correct.
So, yeah.
Correct. So this is about changing behavior
Yeah,
and protecting our
and
kids.
along those lines, and as a follow-up, I know you said you'll be doing some public information
Yes, sir.
about this program. And will there be signs posted that will advise drivers, hey, a school zone, but it's also being monitored by video cameras, or how are you guys?
Yes, sir. So there are multiple signs
Okay.
and flashing lights before you
Okay.
get to the actual school zone
Right,
itself.
right.
And an example, you can see it's on Palm right now.
Okay.
As you're traveling in from either direction on Palm.
All right.
Again, behind Ruckle Middle School, right there by the post office. You can see there's multiple signs before you get to the school zone and before you get to the camera itself. And so
Do those
residents.
signs say video enforcement?
Yes,
or-
sir.
Okay.
Yes,
very
sir.
good.
So there will not be any confusion or the ability to say, I did not know I was entering a school zone, it's part of the statute.
Right.
But we
Okay.
want to make that abundantly clear.
Good, good, good.
I thought
Hi.
it was also interesting that it won't take a picture unless they're going 11 miles over the
Correct.
speed limit.
Yes, sir.
Which
So
is-
my question has to do with, I see that the city council approved this back January 9th.
Yes, ma'am.
Why did you take so many months to contact the school district, since this does affect us? Why are you waiting till after school starts? And I don't know exactly when you contacted, I know you were going to come before and couldn't, but what was the time? Because, you're making a decision that even though you're saying that that jurisdiction is not the school district, with being transparent, knowing that we are getting some money back, and it does affect in front of schools, why would you wait 6 months to come and tell us that your council has passed this ordinance?
Ma'am, it was purposeful because I wanted to ensure that for community information, that it was clear that this is a City of Niceville program and project, completely detached and unrelated to the school board itself. And that the school board and the school district had no responsibility, no actions, and no decisions on this program. I wanted to purposely ensure that the accountability and responsibility fell on the City of Niceville and myself and the City Council, and not the school board, councilman, or Superintendent Chambers, or staff.
Well, while I appreciate that, I think what the public's going to hear is that we are receiving revenue from this project. And I just think it would have been appropriate for you to at least speak with the superintendent or someone in our district, maybe our safety person, Mr. Dean, just to say, hey, we're looking at this.
Sure.
Because I just feel like, especially this length of time, I mean, it's been, if you pass it on January 9th, and here we are at the end of August, perhaps maybe just giving us a heads up would have been, because it does affect us. I mean, even though you're saying it's your jurisdiction and everything, the public sees this, and they see that so they're seeing that, even though you can state that, what they're hearing is that we are getting some money from this. And let's face it, school zones relate to the school district. So I think that I would have appreciated maybe knowing this previous to this month.
Sure. And ma'am, I apologize. I should have informed you sooner. But I'd be more than happy to keep the school portion of the money, and we can use it in Niceville.
Well, but I think,
But your point is well taken. I joke, I joke, man.
But-
Well,
Your point is
well,
well
you could,
taken.
maybe we could just tack on, since you didn't let us know, we'll just let you tack on a little bit and give it to
There
us.
you
How
go.
about that?
There you go.
But I think the state law says that.
It does.
Yes, I know.
Sir, I was joking. I
I
was
know, we're
completely
kidding.
joking.
I understand that. I know what that's saying, but I'm talking about, I'm listening, we are all elected for the people, from the people. And so I'm thinking as a citizen, what I'm hearing.
Sure,
And
sure.
it would have been, I know as, for me, as a school board member, I would have liked to have known this sooner, where maybe had some cooperation with this and knowing.
For
The
sure.
other thing is, we do have our SROs, and so sit out there at those school zones, right?
At
Every
least
day?
one of them.
Right.
There's a deputy sheriff that sits on Parton, but my law enforcement officers work the school zones on Palm behind Ruckel.
So is that where you're getting this information of how many?
No, ma'am. The Ultimate came in and I'm sorry, Ultimate hired a third-party company who came in and did the speed study back in August.
But this deputy, I'm sure, is issuing tickets if someone is going speeding through the school zone, right? Already we're
No,
doing that?
no, ma'am, no. No, ma'am, we do not have the manpower to do that at this point in time. That deputy, or the deputy that is on Parton, and my law enforcement officer, the city of Niceville law enforcement officer that's on Palm, is not there to write tickets. It's to ensure the safe commute of students across those crosswalks before and after school.
So you're telling me that the law enforcement officers do not stop people going through there or don't ticket them? Their only goal is to get the students across the street?
Correct, yes, ma'am, correct.
Okay. That's new, okay. But,
And I would say, Ms. Ivanchuk, obviously, once we found out about this, myself, Mr. Spolsky, Mr. Card, Ms. Card had a conversation with Mr. Deach, who I appreciate that conversation, where we all got on the same page in terms of expectations going forward as things that pertain to the school district, us being a part of that process, and I very much appreciate that conversation. The city of Niceville has, again, always been a strong partner with us. We want to continue with that strong partnership. And
Absolutely.
I think sometimes, in the spirit of communication, we get back together and reestablish
right.
those
That's right.
expectations.
Absolutely. My main concern is not that we don't want to have that partnership, but the timing.
For sure.
The
Yes,
long,
ma'am.
the long
Understood.
delay and getting this, I think it'd been good to have it even prior to school starting, would have been good, so,
Yes, ma'am.
thank you.
And along those lines, and Mr. Bryan, I think you may have something.
You
so
go first,
I'll come back to you.
Yeah.
But I think that from what I'm able to tell so far, that Niceville is kind of the trendsetter, if you will, in this particular
Yes, sir.
endeavor. And because of that, I'm wondering if you may have had contact with any other local municipalities that may also be intending the same. Have you heard anything?
I've had conversations with my counterparts across Okaloosa County. While this is on their to-do list to explore,
Okay.
their to-do list is as long as mine.
Yeah.
But there are other counties, I'm sorry, other cities throughout Okaloosa, or throughout Florida, who have already implemented these
Right,
cameras. And so I did reach out to them to understand how it's going, what the challenges were, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. So in trying to anticipate if there might be some other local municipalities that may embark upon the same endeavor, Superintendent, it might be something that maybe you guys want to reach out to these other cities and say, if you're going to do it, maybe let us know so we can kind of anticipate what's going to happen.
Absolutely, and we're actually in that process
Very good.
right now.
Already know.
And Mrs. Card and Mr. Spolsky. There's a
Okay.
couple cities that we've caught a little bit of wind
Okay.
on, so we're just trying to get out
Okay.
ahead of that.
All right.
So, Dr. White, not a Florida city, but I drive through Thomasville, Georgia quite regularly, and in the city limits of Thomasville, they already have that in
Yes, sir.
there. So, and it's very well signed. It's, you know it's there because the lights, they got the sign flashing and all that.
Right.
But my original comment that I was going to make, I'm going to go ahead and defer that over to the superintendent. So,
So I think as it pertains to school resource officers.
yes, sir.
And I will say, so you will see after school, sometimes there'll be a school resource officer out in a speed zone. But school resource officers are not designated to be in speed zones.
Right.
They're not designated to be in a same spot every day due to safety. So we do not depend, so to speak, on our school resource officers for that, but we do depend on our school resource officers to do their job, which they do very well, to continue to keep students and staff safe.
And ma'am, right now, the city of Niceville is responsible for crossing guards. And so they work for our police department, but right now, we're a little short, so our law enforcement officers are doing that job.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for letting me know that.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I
Mr.
would-
Superintendent, I have a question about the funds. Do we currently get that $12 per 100, that 12% currently now, or is that a new law?
Well, sir, the cameras aren't up and running yet.
Mhm.
But once the cameras are up and running, once we're through that 60-day warning period and fines are started to be issued, the school board will start to receive that revenue. That revenue flows first through the Department of Revenue, and by statute, the Department of Revenue takes a cut, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement
Right.
takes a cut, but then there's money for the city, for the school district, and for the Crossing Guard program. And all that money will be distributed by the Department of Revenue, much like with red light cameras.
So when we get that money, it's not in our line item budget. So it will just be something we have to decide where to put it, like the school board members' capital outlay fund, something like that?
So I'm going to go to it. I'm going to
Have
go
to
to
go
it
to
from two parts, because I think part of your question is also, do we have it anywhere? So we don't necessarily have it anywhere in our district right now. This would be the first, and then the second piece would be, and Mrs. Perry would help us. I believe that with the $12, I'm sure it's very specific as to the use of those dollars
Yep.
and specifically where it would go. So we would follow state statute on that.
And our goal is $0. And I want to
Yes.
thank you, Mr. Deach, for taking on this initiative to, again, safety is our number one concern.
Absolutely.
And when you mentioned 5,800 speeders, 11 miles and over, that was a real eye-opener. And I hope our other areas around us, I'm in the Destin area, I drive from there through here, and I have quite a few cars that are passing me.
For sure, for
In
sure.
the mornings during that school zone.
You know,
And again,
and-
our goal is 0, to
Correct.
just keep our children safe. And I
Correct.
appreciate you in the city of Niceville.
You know,
taking
and
this
what's not
initiative.
captured in the data is those who are going 10 and under
Right.
over the speed limit.
Mm-hmm.
If there was
11 miles
50,
is a
if
lot.
there's 5,800
Yeah,
going 11 or
is-
more, how many, you know, there's probably an equal number going,
At least.
you know, between 5 and 10, right? I mean,
Sure.
and again, everybody knows, you know, a 2,000-pound vehicle, the faster it goes, the less like of a chance you're going to survive.
Yeah.
The faster and faster that vehicle's going.
And
So,
those children are quick. They dart out very quickly. They're on bicycles. They're all of a sudden there.
well, you know, and,
So
and,
it's-
ma'am, the other thing too, and I see this all the time, like I said, when I see them pouring across the street from Ruckle in the afternoon, they cross the street like this.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
Never looking left or right, but always like this. And so, if they're going quick, but they're also going distracted.
Yeah.
And so we need to do everything we can
Everything
to
we
protect
can.
our kids.
Well, we also had an incident up in Crestview a few years ago on Highway 85 regarding a crossing, and fortunately, we had businesses that had cameras that captured this, but, you know, a student and a crossing guard
hit.
were inches away from
Right.
being killed.
Right.
Because a truck comes speeding through there.
Right.
So I see the importance of having some type of documentation too, so.
For sure. Again, this is all about safety.
Right.
I genuinely hope we don't make a penny off of this program.
Yeah.
Because everybody has slowed down.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anything else? We're good? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
I did want to say one thing on school zones that doesn't relate to him, that last week we had a situation where I got notified that we didn't have the lights on in a school zone. It's interesting how many, it ended up that it actually, those lights come on and they're controlled by the county, not us. And so it took a little bit to get through. I think Mr. Dean came through and got it handled and called the right person and got those on because they were not. And so they had messed up the timing between the time change and all that kind of stuff. But so there's a lot of different organizations that go into, you don't think about it with the school zone. We really don't have that much control over the school zones that on the
And that was
highways.
a parent that notified us, so we do appreciate the parents and community
Yes.
reaching out to us to say,
Said,
hey.
yep, that's not on.
An unsafe
Yeah,
situation.
especially where that was located on a
Yes,
major.
especially where it was located.
Yeah.
All right, colleagues, thank you. Mr.
All right.
Superintendent?
So a few other items. So First of all, I do want to say, just like I'm sure some of you will say, the appreciation for Hype on the Harbor last week. All I'm going to say right now, because I know some of you will share some information, is very much appreciate our schools. It's the first week of school and doing Hype on the Harbor, which is fantastic, but there's a lot logistically that goes on behind the scenes with the principals, the sponsors, the students, and getting all of that orchestrated to have the fantastic event that it was. Just very much appreciate the work of our schools doing that, and I have no doubt Mr. Vanchek and some others, and maybe Mr. Bryant, will have a couple words on Hype on the Harbor. I do want to share, as you know, last week we had the State Board of Education conducted their state board meeting here in this room in Okaloosa. I was extremely proud that, one, they chose to come here, and two, I could not be more appreciative of Mrs. Floyd, Miss Mary, and the team that put all this together, all the behind-the-scenes pieces to make sure that that meeting ran well. I'd say you'd be surprised, but you probably wouldn't, just the amount of coordination it takes to pull off somebody else's meeting. So just very appreciative of that. Do want to also say, we talk about the community and how this community supports our school district, and this I thought was awesome. And you look at HCA Florida, Fort Walton Destin Hospital, Eglin Federal Credit Union, Florida Power and Light, HCA Florida Twin Cities Hospital, Hurlburt Field Air Force Base. All of them came together before school started to help a number of our schools. Specifically, they helped Destin Elementary, Edge Elementary, Edwins, Elliott Point, Mary Esther, Northwood, Plouffe, Southside, and Walker. And by help, they beautified the school. They helped move classrooms. They did painting. They did all the beautification things and readiness things to help. We went over to Mary Esther, and we thanked a number of them who were there. Some of them were outside. It was pretty hot, but yet they were there. But they went to the magnitude of schools that they went to. Again, we talk about community engagement as one of our pillars that we want to be a part of, but so many give back to this school district. And I thought that that was absolutely fantastic. Do want to remind our parents there are 2 apps to stay connected to. One of them is the Focus app, which allows our parents to track their students' academic progress. And I know that they want that. Some of the students wish maybe that app wasn't there from time to time. And then there's the Aptogee app that allows our families to stay in touch with just all the different news that's happening across the school district. And the nice thing is you don't have to be in front of the computer. You can be just right here, which most people have this right there with them. So just a great communication device. Dr. Hale, if you'd come forward and give a hiring/vacancy update.
Morning, Dr. Hale.
Good morning. How's everybody doing this morning?
Great,
Good,
good to
thank
see you.
Pleasure to be here. I apologize for my absence at the last board meeting, but the capable hands of Lindsay Maxey were standing in for me, so I was very happy about that. As of this morning, 6:45 a.m., I'm pleased to report that we have 320 new faces and new places in terms of instruction. That's what we have been doing over the course of this summer with our teachers. That is transfers, new to the district, new teachers to the profession, career changers, all in 320 new faces at new school sites. In the support realm, we've hired, or I should say, or transferred 129, and we're still working. We have some vacancies to attend to. Before I get to the vacancies, I would also just mention that in the instructional realm, we have moved the needle a bit in terms of the percentages of who we've hired this year. We've gotten over 51% of people that actually have the professional certification, either as a first-year teacher or as an experienced teacher coming to the district. So that's starting to creep trend the right direction. We still have 40% of those hired new to the district this year from a career changer standpoint, so the professional services department will continue to be really busy as we work on not only getting them completely certified if they have a temporary certificate, but also getting them acclimated to a new career in teaching in the classroom. So excited about those numbers. but there is work to be done. We still have 29 instructional vacancies. Of those 29, 24 are at schools. But if you remember this time last year, we had well over 50 instructional vacancies, and over half of those at that time were ESE vacancies. So of the 24 positions that we have across the entire district right now, only 9 of those are of the ESE variety, which is exciting. And just as a matter of comment, I know that last year at this time I would kind of tell you where the vacancies were in a general sense. And so in terms of the zones, I would tell you that there are 7 in the north, 5 in the central, and 12 in the south, which if you break that down by zone, that's manageable. And I will tell you that among all of these vacancies, there's only one that is out there this morning with 0 applicants, and that is kind of a specialty position. It's a music position. Everything else today has applicants. So principals continue to work through interviews. They continue to look through hiring, and so I anticipate that number to creep even smaller in terms of the total amount of vacancies. And just for your information, that's what it looks like in terms of zones, but in terms of the type of schools where the vacancies are, of the 24 positions, 16 of those are elementary, that's a new trend for the year. Middle school has 4, high school has 2, and what I would call kind of undesignated community type, whether it be Richburg or an all-inclusive grade level, there's 2 of those that are still out there. So still work to be done, but that's where we currently stand instructionally. In terms of support, we have 54 unique positions that are out there right now. Of course, that's kind of a false number because, we only put the one advertisement out there for the variety of different bus routes that we have to fill. So it's really more than that. We post the bus routes, 1 for each zone, so that represents 3 of our total, but it's really more than 3 of our total vacancies because we'll keep those open all year long because we'll continue to look for bus drivers. The average, one thing that I forgot to mention about the instructional, I'll just go back and say it. One of the things that we've got professional services tracking this year is the average experience of people coming to teach in the district. And right now we're over 4 years experience, which is good. That's just, I don't know what you do with that number, but that's a number. So, any questions about our vacancy hiring situation right now?
So how many bus drivers? You mentioned that of that 54 positions, about a ballpark figure.
So around 30.
Okay.
If we were to get 30, I bet you we'd still keep that advertisement open, though.
Absolutely.
We'd love to have 30 bus drivers.
Still a
up
lot
here.
of bus drivers that we
Yes, ma'am.
need.
Any other questions?
So with lacking, that many bus drivers, are we having some do double routes? How are we managing?
So the way the transportation department handles this, they have people that sub in on other folks' routes when they're
Right.
vacant. We've actually done some work with the union this year on how to compensate them differently when that happens, so that they can be incentivized to help out in that regard. We also have other people that are not specifically bus drivers that will help from time to time, that have their CDLs. So it's really a teamwork thing in that department. They're, I don't want to speak for everybody, in the room today, but the start of school with regard to buses, I know there was a little bit of a snag. There always is the first day, but collectively, my office hasn't been getting the same amount of phone calls. So I really appreciate the efforts of the bus drivers and the transportation department as they make a way.
Absolutely.
Well, I think this is one of those positions that, I know we double filled this with Mr. Gore, Ryan Gore, and being the beginning of the year, and I know we picked him up this summer so that he can see exactly and have the knowledge that Jay McGinnis has, so much knowledge that we are losing right there. So again, that double fill really does come in handy.
Absolutely, and I'll
Important.
probably hit a couple other things on this topic
Okay.
in a moment, but Mr. Meyer?
If nobody calls in sick, we don't have to double up. It's when people don't show up for various reasons,
Sure.
that's where we get in trouble.
Okay.
So right now, we have them all covered if everybody shows up.
Great. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, Superintendent?
And so also as a reminder, as it pertains to vacancies, as it pertains to hiring, there's also the opposite side of that, which is student enrollment. And so Mr. Spolsky monitors that student enrollment daily. As you know from being on the board, and you might already know this, Mr. Heinley, but if not, we monitor student enrollment the first 10 days. Because what our computers show as student enrollment versus who actually shows, that's two different things. So the first 10 days, we have what's called DNEs, did not enroll. And on the first day, we had probably 1,300 DNEs. And now we're down to what I believe is right around 120 DNEs. So that's substantially gone down. But I also mentioned that because we have to look at staffing to student enrollment. And if student enrollment is down, then staffing also needs to adjust. So we look at that very, very carefully. We look at class size. We look at the master contract class size as well. We want to make sure that we're meeting that. I appreciate the conversations that we've had with the union regarding that topic, but not making adjustments too soon, I think is important. We want the least amount of adjustments as possible, but we also have to be very mindful with the budget and very mindful with the staff as well. So I appreciate Mr. Spolsky and his team really working through that. So we just finished, in essence, that 10 days. So we're breaking down that data, seeing which schools have a vacancy. If they do they need that vacant position, or can we readjust? So what you will see in some circumstances, not necessarily at every school, but you'll see some master schedule adjustments. Our high schools are going through that process right now. They communicate with the students, they communicate with the families, and I know some don't like these adjustments a week in or 2 weeks in, but it's very important for running schools to be able to make these adjustments and paying attention to student enrollment.
And Superintendent, I'll never forget what a legislator told me one time when I was asking for more funding. And he said, Lamar, they don't give you money for empty seats. And that's the bottom line. And so what this means is I'm assuming that we have a slight mismatch between what we projected our enrollment to be and what it actually looks like it is. Is that correct?
So there's truth to that. So we're monitoring that right now, and I'll say it, I'm glad that statement's there. As you know, a number of years back, let's go a decade, let's even go 5 years ago, looking at our FTE projections, which is how we're funded, as you know, there was a science to it. And you could almost be within 50 kids, you could be within 20 kids. Some schools specifically, when it was site-based days,
Right.
they may have been on the exact number. Now, in the day and age of vouchers, in the day and age of family empowerment scholarships, where you don't necessarily know who's coming, so your trend lines of everything that you look at to project student enrollment, there's now I'll just call it a deviation within those trend lines, because you don't know if someone's going to take a family empowerment scholarship. So families have options, and options are always good for folks, but when we go through that FTE process, there's now a factor, which are vouchers and family empowerment scholarships, which make it, I'd almost dare to say, virtually impossible to get exact numbers nowadays, which is why Ms. Perry does a great job of, if the state says we're going to have this many, and we know that we're going to have this many, that funding comes to us. So she takes that funding to the side, because if it doesn't show, we pay that back. But then she also has an FTE shortfall, so to speak, account to help us if we don't meet our projection as well. So it's a different day and age nowadays with keeping up with student enrollment.
And I know that's very, very difficult, and I can't imagine how much more complex it is now. But what I think I hear you saying is that by making some staff adjustments, that will bring our projections and our real funding closer to alignment, so that we get closer to the match.
Absolutely, and when we say staff adjustments, because I know some folks are listening as well, so what I'm not saying is we're going to be letting go teachers, so I'm not
Still need
saying that at
teachers,
all,
right.
Still
because
need money.
we need teachers, But what I am saying is if there's a vacant position that's there,
Right.
and the school can make an adjustment accordingly within,
Right.
then we have the ability to pull back that vacant position. What also could be there, but I don't think that we're there right now, is if a school was overstaffed and another school was understaffed, do we have the ability to make some adjustments? We do. We're not there right now, but we are watching these numbers with a critical eye.
Very good.
And on class size, there's a state class size, correct? But they've kind of loosened up on that, is my understanding. And so where does our contract class size fit in with that?
And correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Hale, I think at the secondary level, and I know Ms. Jordan Appleberg's over there listening with a keen eye as well. I think in essence, if there's 5 periods, it's 150 students. If it's 6 periods, it's 180 students.
Okay.
And then if you go over that, there's some things that we do. And so paying attention to the master contract class size is very important. As you stated, there used to be penalties associated with class size at the state level. And those penalties were minuscule compared to what you were funding to meet class size.
Right.
Those penalties have now been removed.
Okay.
Did they ever collect on those penalties? At one time, oh, never mind.
Yeah.
Well, I'll
We're
just
going
add-
to
I'll
follow,
just
we're
add
going
it,
to follow
and
the law.
We all know this up here at this board, that we're required by law to have
By
a
law.
balanced budget. So Superintendent, appreciate you doing what you're doing.
Appreciate it. Do have a few other updates, a few other things.
Yeah, sure.
So I do want Ms. Lightbourne to come forward. As you know, we've talked about it on the school board. You know, we're proud of being an A district. But there's also the work that's still to be done. And every year, there's a lot of data that's analyzed, school performance plans that are adjusted, focus areas that are put out. And I think the beautiful thing is that we have fantastic teachers, staff, and administrators who implement this. But I wanted Mrs. Lightbourne just to kind of share an abbreviated version of what we're doing.
So our focus this year is Tier 1 interactive whole group instruction. So basically, for layman's terms, Tier 1 means on grade level instruction. Interactive whole group means interaction, engagement between teacher and student to student. So that big piece, okay? Tier 1 small group instruction, same thing, on grade level small group instruction. So we're reiterating what happened in that whole group instruction in the small group instruction. Then what we'll do is also we will have focus on accelerating students instead of calling it remediation. So we want to look at where is the gap for a student, scaffold that gap so they can receive Tier 1 small group instruction appropriately, okay? We're focusing on backwards design in our lesson planning. So backwards design means we start with the end in mind. We start with the standard, the ALDs, the assessment. We look at what the student has to get to, and then we plan accordingly to get them to there. And then we're really excited about our online assessments this year. So our students take their assessments online, which is the same way that they take their progress monitoring assessments. They mirror the same type of assessments. It also gives us real-time data, so we don't have to wait for the PM data. We have real-time data every time a student takes an online assessment.
I just want to add one thing on the online assessment. So there's 2 things that happen there. One, when it gets to the actual Progress Monitoring 3 test in May, there are students who may know the answer to the test but don't understand the ability of the online ability of navigating the question. So that piece is helpful. And then 2, it's a reminder of the level of rigor of the questions that these students are engaging with.
Correct. And then, Ms. Ivanchuk, this relates to your question earlier, is the integration of digital tools to enhance instruction. So as Mr. Chambers said, we did bring algebra and geometry teachers, all have a Clear Touch now across our district. That was an area of focus for our students. So that's our starting place. Most of our middle schools are in pretty good shape with Clear Touches. Our elementaries are coming along, so I do expect that you guys will get requests for more. And I'm glad that you guys are able to support that. We're still working, so our plan now, what will be the next thing? So we did look this year at when we had a few extra because teachers already had one. We looked at third grade because our third grade students was another area of focus. So we were able to give 5 of our schools, all the third grade teachers in those 5 schools, Clear Touches as well from our 60 deployment this year. So we were very excited about that. And then we do have a plan moving forward. I do like to look at data, so that shifts a little bit sometimes to look at our areas of focus versus and that may be our new area of need. So, but high school is a place where Mr. Chambers knows my heart is. We need to get more digital access to our students in high school. It's just such an engagement tool, and I know that you guys have been in classrooms and seen it in play, and it just is a game changer, I think, and that's the way our students learn. So we're also working on collaborative planning through PLCs this year. So again, that online assessment data comes into play during that collaborative planning PLC time. So that's a big thing. We're really excited about that. Our coaches are supporting those PLCs as well as our district specialists. Our district specialists are making every effort to be, let's say, Stephanie Gillis is at all of the high school algebra PLCs to support those teachers as well. And then our other area is a clear focus on K-2 instruction with the integration of UFly curriculum. And UFly is the University of Florida curriculum that focuses on phonics and phonemic awareness and the science of reading. So we're very excited about that new phase of curriculum for our K-2.
So
Ms.
we're back
Gardner.
to phonics? We're back to phonics?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I need to send you an
It all
article.
comes around.
About the phonics that, who was the person she wrote all the books, Lucy
Calkins?
Calkins? Yes.
Mhm.
I'll send you, but it was the support of phonics that we really need to go back to.
Yes.
The phonics that it's.
I would love, anytime you would like to sit down and look at the UFly curriculum, really excited about it. When you go into K-2 classrooms, you should see word walls, but they're not the word walls like they used to be. They're actually sound walls. So as our younger students are learning how to pronounce things or even just the letter, it shows the shape of the mouth and how the mouth should be for that word or that letter. So that's
awesome.
what you'll see in those K-2 classrooms versus what we used to have word walls in the past. So that's just one little touch of it, but
Well, I made
very
a note
excited.
to send you that article because it was talking, there's a lot of data in it, the importance of the phonics, and she's even changing her books up now. And she
All
is
right.
now embracing phonics in her books, her
Very
study.
good. Very
Nice
good.
to see.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Send it, please. Did you have something, Mr. Chambers?
I'm good.
Okay. Also, so we talked a little bit about PLCs, but all of our content area teachers are collaborating for 30 minutes weekly to plan interactive whole group instruction lessons. So everything still, again, surrounds the interactive whole group instruction. So if you go back to that first slide, that means the technology is added into that, et cetera. So that's what makes it such a good interactive instruction. And then we have added.
And one second, Ms. Lightbourne.
Yes.
And that bullet is a big deal. As you know, teachers coming together to collaborate on their content, to discuss strategies, to discuss engagement, to discuss students. So to do that weekly, that is a big deal, has the ability to be a game changer for our school district. I think any time that you can get 5, 6, 3, 10 teachers together who can share, that's a great thing for students.
Absolutely. We're proud that we're able to add a technology instructional coach who is focusing on ClearTouch integration, but through instruction. So it's not just a toy, it's a tool to provide instruction. She's fantastic. She's been out to many of our schools that received the 60 ClearTouches and is working with teachers, and that seems to be going very well. As you know, our ELL students are a targeted area this year. So we are providing additional support to them. We have one 12-month TSA that is working with all of our, oh my goodness, lost the
Our schools are
all of our schools with high L students in them, and she'll be supporting both the 2 ELL coaches that we have, and she's our 12-month TSA. And she was actually once our instructional coach. So she's got the both the L side and the coaching side for ELA as well.
And you look back historically, and a number of years ago, we may have had 500, 600 ELL students. Now, we're up to about 2,800 within the entire program. And so I very much appreciate Ms. Lightboard, Ms. Lamb, Dr. Choice being very proactive, Ms. Barron as well, being very proactive of what we're doing for our students. Getting some coaches in there, being very strategic to the schools where many of our students go to, and being able to provide that support.
Well, and I'm just going to say that back when we were talking about, when you were mentioning years ago, it was basically Spanish. And so our ELL coaches or teachers, I mean, but in listening and talking to some teachers, they were telling me all the many different languages. It is amazing. And you've got one of this and one of this, maybe 2, and then a handful maybe of the Spanish speaking. So it's a variety of.
It is.
Different
60,
languages.
is it 60 languages?
60 plus, yes.
And we're seeing more and
Yes.
more of that.
challenging.
Yes.
It is very challenging.
Yep.
And as you suggested, that population has changed dramatically in just in sheer numbers, plus in terms of diversity of all the different languages. I well remember that at a school that I was assigned to, we had the entire ESOL population, and there were 70 students for middle schools, and that was all. And Ms. Gardner, you're exactly right. Mostly we focused on Spanish. But the thing that's interesting, and certainly something that maybe we can get some information on later, is that how this impacts assessment. Because assessment is typically routinely done in English. Am I correct?
Correct.
And so students that may not be sufficient in English, and we turn around and give them a test in English, that can be an issue, and can certainly with those numbers that you're talking about, that can certainly skew the way that the performance on those assessments may look. So maybe at some time we could get some more information about that, and I might be off a little bit, so it would be good.
And Ms. Lightbourne will get you more specific data, but I can say off the top of the head of us looking at this data, when you look at the ELL population, who works extremely hard, who our teachers are doing a great job for them,
Still hard.
but the proficiency level is anywhere from 25% to 30% proficient
In English or in the subject matter?
in the subject matter of what's being assessed by the state.
Okay, and so it might actually be higher if it were assessed in their native language.
Most times it is.
Right.
Right, but that is not allowed.
But we can't do
Right.
that, yeah,
Correct.
so, you
Correct.
know.
But the point there is that because of that, it skews those overall scores to maybe look something different than what they really are.
Correct. They do have the ability to use a language dictionary during the assessment, but, you know, that's difficult in
Sure.
itself
And it's
to
time.
navigate.
Well, yeah, and
Yes.
especially a younger student
It's time.
trying, a second grader probably going to do that. So really, the results of the assessment for those students is not truly accurate of what they know as far as the skill, because the language barrier.
Exactly.
Correct.
It's a big challenge, but I'm glad that we're
Yep.
adding to that to get more people.
And the first year student is new to the country.
Yeah.
They still have to
Right.
take the assessment, but that assessment does not count against
And
us.
it used to
But-
be that was for 2 years. Is that same?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, but then after that, regardless of their
correct.
proficiency level in English, it counts.
Yes, sir.
And is factored into the overall school grade and then the district grade.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and I talked about this not too long ago, but we know Spanish is our second language in the district, but the third and the fourth and the fifth language, I was shocked. Like, I heard Vietnamese was like our third or fourth.
Portuguese is probably
Yeah,
our
Portuguese,
second.
I mean, you know, so not only, you know, you have Spanish, but you're right, you have all these other languages that are coming, Ukrainian, Russian, things. So it is a challenge. And I proctored last year for the end of the testing, and I saw firsthand a student who could not speak English take a test, and he was the first one done.
Of course,
Yeah.
yeah. And just think about how scary that was for that
Oh, yeah.
student as
I
well.
hate to do it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
hate to take that
Yeah.
format.
Yeah.
Plus, they're dealing with all the cultural changes, many of them, that they're having to work through, along with challenge.
Absolutely. So we're planning on providing support. Dr. Choice has done a great job in providing many PLs, professional learning opportunities, for our teachers this summer. She has teachers who are being trained to be trainers as well. In a program, they did 3 days in the summer. I think they have 2 more days to go, and then they'll be certified trainers for a program. So we're excited to support this population and our teachers, to help support our teachers support this population. Okay. Also, another area of focus for us was ESE. So in our secondary learning strats, we're focusing on executive functioning skills, teacher collaboration throughout school year to help students be successful. So those groups of teachers are coming together as well in their PLCs and working on creating their curriculum to support students. Our ESE resource teachers are using data-driven curriculum to support our students, so they'll also be using iReady, specific components of iReady. So we're very excited about that, as well as meeting the needs of our students and their individualized IEP goals. And then we've had targeted professional learning opportunities for teachers of students with different exceptionalities, and we'll continue to have those trainings as well. Questions?
Looks fabulous.
Thank
Good
you.
job.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lightbourn. Superintendent?
And I just appreciate Mrs. Lightbourn and her team. There's a lot, as you know, that goes into preparing for the new school year and continuing to strive to have academic excellence. I shared with you there was going to be a number of presentations today, but you might be like me, who receives information on where are we with these capital projects. So if Mr. Meyer wanted to come forward, just share with you kind of where we are on multiple capital projects, and then we're going to share just a little bit, I'm going to start a little bit of information about why some of these gentlemen are out here so eagerly listening to all of this information.
Thank you, Mr. Chambers. And I love seeing the school colors. Mr. Heinley, would you talk to somebody at Niceville to get you some maroon?
I brought this.
Oh, there we go. Okay, all right, yeah, yes. Love it.
Well, and I offered to bring extra red shirts, but nobody took me up on it.
No way.
You did, but I offered to bring some.
Garnet
Viking
and gold
shirts,
all the way.
But nobody.
So I got several slides here, mostly pictures, but I want to update you with some of the projects that we completed over the summer. Some of these we've been talking about for months, but we were really pushing to get completed before the students came back. So that was a big deal. And then we got some other ones done, and we got a lot of work done over the summer. It was a busy summer, especially for these guys here in the back. The multi-purpose buildings, we've talked about these quite a bit. We've had a ribbon cutting at Fort Walton. We're going to have ribbon cuttings for these other ones in the next few weeks and the next few months. But Baker, there on the left, Laurel Hill on the bottom right, and Crestview, the top right, they are all complete, and the students are using them, and they turned out great.
I'd just like to add, I happened to speak to a band director, a high school band director here recently, and I said, hey, how are you guys dealing with all this heat? And he said, well, it's, we're doing okay, and we're out there, and we're conditioning and doing all the things we're supposed to. But that multi-purpose building was great, because we've been able to go in there as well and do
Yes,
some
sir.
work there
Yes,
that we
sir.
needed to do. And that's just a tremendous asset.
It is, I
So-
agree. Multiple groups are using that. One of the schools held their back-to-school teacher orientation in
Very
the
good.
multipurpose building as well. There was some night activities already, so it's great seeing these put to use.
Mr. Meyer, these
yep.
pictures are wonderful, but I had the opportunity to be at 2 schools when some students walked in the first time to see. It was, just the look on their face. I mean, one little boy was rubbing the floor where the emblem was. He was
Yes.
so excited. So just the pride these students have to walk in to see these new multipurpose rooms or the cafeteria or classrooms is just.
It's great to see.
It's worth every bit of it.
Really
It's worth
good to
every
see.
half cent.
That's right. So, and speaking of that, these were all supposed to be done next spring. That was the deadline of the 3 years. So we're 6, 7, 8 months ahead of schedule. Now, there's a few that are still having some work done, but we are way ahead of what we anticipated. So that was good to see. This is Choctaws, so I thought it was interesting to show you the progression of some of this construction. So when you look left to right, there were tennis courts behind the gym there on the left-hand side and the top. That's when we demoed that area, did some of the site work, and then when you come down to the bottom left, the foundation was laid, and then the construction of the building itself, and then the completed building. So just, it's a snapshot of several months and a lot of work, planning, and then executing. When we broke ground on that area, you'd be surprised of how many utilities were under that specific area and that we ran into and had no idea. So it just slows things down. But then the patience of the school and having to work with students going around this area, now we got them completed, so it was worth it. So it was neat to see this slide here. So that's all but Niceville is lagging. Niceville's got a little more time to be complete, but that's the multi-purpose buildings. The cafetoriums, those, we have 2 that are up and running. We're actually serving meals out of. The students are using them for breakfast and lunch. These 2, on the left-hand side is Edwin's, on the right is Wright. They look very similar from this angle and the new parking, but we have new parking lots. We have a new car rider line. The one on the right, which is right now, the parents are dropping off the students right to the cafetorium, and a lot more staging area. And they were thrilled. They said that was one of the smoothest opening as far as dropping students on and off, just because of the space and where we put this building. So those are aerial photos. And go ahead, Mr.
And the car rider line, like such as Wright, not overlooking that is substantial to the improvement of the traffic flow and just ease and flow at the school. And then Mr. Meyer and I, last week, went out to a number of these cafeterias or cafetoriums and just talking to the cafeteria staff, how proud they are. But these are cafetoriums, but they also have an additional classroom that's associated.
Correct. There's a partition in the middle of the building where the schools can use one side as a multi-purpose classroom, PE space, and still have enough room to serve and have lunch. So it's really nice and useful.
And what about the music
I
program?
was gonna say music's
Yeah,
up
so
there.
on all of the cafetoriums, there's a space in the back side or one side of it, and it's a new music room. They have plenty of area. They have new equipment, and we saw
Nice.
how some of the music
Very
teachers set that
nice.
up, and they're thrilled about having that.
Does it have a stage?
It has movable platforms where elevated, where
Oh,
they
good.
can use as chorus or music.
Right,
Mhm.
performance.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So those are the 2 that are complete. Plough and Ruckel are right behind. They're very close. And then the 2, Shalimar and Bob Sykes, will be later in the fall. This is projects that have been going on a while, but we haven't talked about them, at least here, a lot. But Choctaw and Lewis front entries are complete for the most part. There's still some things being wrapped up, punch list, And then, of course, putting some artwork and things in that space. But Lewis, for the entire school year, last year, had to move their drop-off area, and just, they dealt with the construction, but it's done, it's usable, and they're loving that over there. It really makes a big difference. You know where the front of the school is now. It's very similar to prior, which we did years ago. And Choctaw, if you drove down Racetrack Road, you've seen this construction, and this is turned out quite well. And the school is excited about it, and we're using that as the front entry now. So, Richburg, this is another school that actually used this during pre-planning and back to school, and this area was well needed for this school. The space was needed for some of the programs that school had. They needed some office space for attendants. They needed a teacher's lounge. And this area is nice and new, and it's made a big difference on that campus. We started with the roof on that building, so the picture on the right, it had a new roof before we could do all the work underneath, but that turned out well. And again, we were pushing hard for some of this to get done over the summer. We had several paving projects that we could not start during the school year, so we actually had to wait till school was over before we could start these. But they have made
Mr. Meyer.
Yes, sir.
And I'm so excited about this one, by the way. There's some good paving projects here. Go ahead.
Yes. So,
I'll get my note to talk to you about the Kenwood track.
yes, yes. So some of these we have talked
My
about
mom
for
got caught in it.
several years, and we had to have an engineer, work through some of this and then time this out. But the picture on the right, top right, was the old parking area where the student drop-off actually went through the parking lot, and it was tight, it was congested, and you're right, it went out in the community roads and backed up even from people getting out of their driveways. So we dealt with that. They started construction as soon as school was out, and you can see some of the pictures there, but the three on the right are the new parking area where we gained additional parking spaces, and then rerouted the car rider drop-off and gained all that space, so that did
I
turn
want to
out
say
well.
too that this convenience, but also this was a safety issue. Because I know at Wright Elementary, the cars went down, and Kenwood, down the road. Emergency vehicles could not get through. Neighbors could not get in. They were going around the sides, up on the sidewalks, and then you've got students being released. So again, yes, it's nicer for convenience, but also huge safety issue.
Yes.
And it took my mom 22 minutes to go 2 miles. I got a call.
Yes.
From a
It's
concerned
It's
citizen.
a great point.
She told me
As-
she paid
yeah,
taxes.
oh, wow. As these communities have grown up around these schools, it's just congested, and
Extremely.
so it's nice to be able to come back with some of these capital projects now and fix some of these issues, so.
It was nice, very nice.
Baker School, the picture there on the top left is the land that was directly behind the credit union that we purchased last year. That was able to be paved, and there's like almost 80-something parking spots there. As you pull up to the campus, it stands out. They can use this when they're during school, but then also it's next to the stadium. And it just cleans up that area, and we were also able to, our maintenance guys actually had some paving done where the buses pull into and fuel their buses, so we were able to do both, and that project just turned out really, really nice.
Much better.
Ruckel Middle School. This is almost done. There's a section that we're working with the city that there's a water line under there that we couldn't do the entire strip, but next to the weight room, we were able to asphalt and pave, and it really cleans this up. If you've looked over the last couple of years, you drive down Palm, there was a lot of dirt and gravel, and this has cleaned it up, and they're now using that backside of the school as another drop-off, where they used to come down Old Coastal and into the back of the gym. They're using this side more often, so we're able to clean that up, and it just looks phenomenal. We'll come back to that other section when we can. And then, as we did that project, we were also able to pave behind the Ruckle baseball field, but we're calling it Niceville because it's really the kids, athletic students that park in that area. We were able to add a parking lot which has almost 30 spots there, and those students, especially if they play softball and baseball or use that practice field on the opposite side, they can park there. So that's cleaned that corner up off of Old Coastal. Turned out good. Destin Middle School. This was needed because if you've ever tried to leave the school and come out on Danny Werfel Way, especially during the spring and summer, it is tight. So we put in a right-hand turn lane going into the school and a right-hand turn lane going out of the school. And we feel like whether you're going back out on Danny Werfel Way or going around the school down to Turnberry, this is going to help with the cars.
There's been some serious accidents, people coming off that bridge very
Yes,
quickly, and the
yes,
school's trying
that-
to, and they're not
correct.
seeing those flashing lights, so there's some very
Correct.
serious.
It is. It's a
Dangerous.
dangerous spot. So, but those are some of the paving projects that we didn't talk about before the summer and that we were able to squeeze in this summer. So it was a lot of pushing to get it done, but they turned out great.
So, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Superintendent, can I ask a question?
Yep.
So, Mr. Meyer, since you're up here talking about paving, I need your help. Let's talk about Crestview real quick in the future and where we're going to go with that, because that's been a hot topic
It has.
directed at me. But since you're here, and I
Yes.
feel like people watch our board
That's
meetings,
right.
let's talk about that real quick.
Yes, sir, Mr. Bryant, that's a great question, and we've had several conversations. I've had some conversations with community members as well. So there is a budget line that we have the money in there for this school year. Now it's a timing issue, working with the school. It's a large project. We're going to either have to move some of the parking spots or wait to a long holiday or summer, or split it up into phases. So we're currently working with Jacobs Titan and a civil engineer to phase this because there's so much paving up there that needs to be done. We're planning that out, but it will happen. I've told some community members we have it scheduled for this year, whether it's during the school year or next summer.
Right.
We're going to have to work out the details.
Right. Well, and I appreciate that because, I mean, as long as I've lived in Crestview and my kids have been to Crestview, the parking lot has been an issue. We joke around about it that, Eglin used it as a bombing range because it's that bad in the back part of it. But a lot of the reason why it came to that was a lot of construction projects that went on, and, because then we didn't have the capital to necessarily do it all correctly. Like Mr. Chambers says, we had to patch things up. That was the result of that. But I'm really confident knowing that moving forward, Crestview, the people of Crestview and that have students at Crestview High School, the students themselves are going to be very proud of what's going to be done up there. Obviously, by what we've already accomplished with the other schools, there's a visual there, and I want people who are watching this to see the visual of what's going to happen at Crestview High School. So I'm really excited about that.
It's important.
Yeah.
So, yes, sir. Prior classroom flooring. So this was another project that we could only do during the summer. So this was every classroom in the main building in the 3 ramps. We were able to install new flooring. So it sounds easy that it could be done quickly. It's not. So when you really think about all these projects, but this one in particular, who's moving the furniture? And some of the guys behind me probably going, yep, we had to move the furniture and then move it back in there. And then we had to deal with some of the issues under the floor and then actually install the floor. But every classroom at Pryor Middle School has new flooring, and it turned out great. We have lots of roofs still that we're doing work. 2 of the schools we added last school year where we knew we had some issues and we wanted to do and we had to do over the summer were Kenwood and Plew. And if you know those schools well, the design is similar. So they're shingle roofs and they're the hexagon-shaped buildings. This was unique to have a contractor come in and do this. They really had to look at this and the peaks and valleys all through that. But the 2 pictures on the left are the old roof. You can see a blue tarp on the top left there that was probably there for quite some time. But to come in over the summer, to tear it off deal with the issues that we had with some water damage, termite damage on Plough particular, and to get this done before school started, there was a lot of work, and we did get that completed. And then the same thing with, I'm sorry, this one was Kenwood, and this one is Plough, but very similar and same contractor, but we got both of those done.
What's the life of those? roofs?
25 years, yes, sir. That's a good question. These were some of the ones that we mentioned, so I'm going to go quick, but we did wrap these up. This was Laurel Hill. We had 4 different areas in the school that were having roofing done. Fort Walton, we got that wrapped up, and that was a big project. That was the coating, but that finished up. Silver Sands, we talked about this before, but they're all done and moved out. This was a smaller building on Niceville's campus that was shingled. Now it's metal. That was completed. And not to go, so some of the maintenance guys behind me too, some of the small projects, we really don't highlight it that often. The school does, they put that up. But they were able to go into Baker and Bruner and Choctaw and do some upgrades to our restrooms. Our restrooms throughout the county, of course, get a lot of use. And there's times, and we have not been highlighting that over the last few years, but these guys come in there and work with contractors and get some restrooms done as well. So I know we missed the half-cent owner's rep meeting, so last time, but this is a quick update on what we got completed over the summer. So.
A lot.
Amazing.
Good.
So I just want to say to the board, you just think about what just happened this summer, let alone the last 3 years, the magnitude of projects that we've been able to not only take on, but to complete, that prior to 4 years ago wouldn't even have been a possibility. We did patching, we did fixing, now we're doing replacing and new construction, new buildings. So just couldn't be prouder of what's happening. I think it shouldn't be lost on what Mr. Meyer said. Some of these buildings were slated to be done in the spring, and some are already done now, and a few that are delayed for the start of school are still several months ahead of schedule. So just really appreciate all the work.
When you say summer, we're only talking, what, 8 weeks maybe at the most?
Yeah.
And some of those have summer schools? So,
Yep.
nice job, great job, guys.
Good job, man. All right, very good.
All right. So we have a group who's here with us, and they have been extremely patient, so we appreciate that. And I just want to say, one of the things that we want to do, and I appreciate Dr. White, is recognizing groups of employees at these workshops. And I want to say, and there's a group here that Mr. Patrick Strong represents as well, who, when you talk to Patrick, he advocates tremendously for his people. And then you have Mr. Bolton, who's here, Mr. McElroy, he's here under the leadership of Mr. Meyer. But this group right here of maintenance, and you look that they are a representation of those who aren't here right now, but we talk about the summer, and you talk about all the work that occurs throughout the summer, and many of those things didn't appear on these slides, but to be out there in the heat, in the rain, to go to the schools and complete what you guys complete, and then you look at just the level of expertise, from whether it's electrical, whether it's HVAC, whether it's paving, whether it's knowing the piping underneath our facilities, whether it's knowing what's happening on the roofs. I mean, and there's so many different areas. I drove by Stroll River, I think it was 2 weeks ago, blazing hot, gentlemen out there working diligently right there. And this is what this group of individuals do. When we have a storm, who's the first ones that are out there at 5 a.m. before many folks have even woken? And the same thing when something happens with a water leak and those schools are flooding, who are the individuals that are out there at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock, making sure that it's fixed while, in some cases, people are sleeping? We talk about, on the top of this is OCSD family. In our principal meetings, we talk about our school district is like a gear, and it takes all the different gears to make a watch function. And it takes all the different gears to make a school district function. And so where we appreciate our teachers and our principals and our staff, rightfully so, but it takes everybody in this school district to make it run. So it just could not be more appreciative for what you do. And I know that they can't wait till October, November rolls around and that heat kind of rolls off. But what you guys do, we would not be the school district that we are. We talk about being an A+ school district up there, and that's about academics, the arts, and the athletics. None of those things happen if you guys aren't doing the job that you do, and we do not tell you enough. And you all may have some words as well.
I was gonna see if you
Could we have them stand
I was
up?
gonna say, ask them to stand, so.
How about all you guys standing up? We'll give you,
You
yeah,
stretch
there
your
you go.
legs.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else?
I just would say thank you. I know you don't hear, we do mention, all of us from time to time, pretty much every day, every meeting, how much we do appreciate and we recognize you. I know that when my schools, when I was a principal, the sun wasn't even up, it would be 5 o'clock, and already the person that was assigned to me would be calling me to say, Ms. Gardner, I'm already here, you don't have damage. So we greatly, greatly appreciate it. Not only was it hot this summer, it was record-breaking hot. And your people were out there and will continue to be out there, and we just, again, it's a very important part of the Okaloosa County team. We appreciate you.
You guys are really unsung
Rock stars.
heroes because we know that you get the flack when things aren't going well, but you rarely get the recognition when it's going right, because we take for granted that we show up at the schools, the lights come on, everything happens, but it's only when it doesn't happen that we do that. But I want you to know how much we do appreciate you, and know that every day, you know, you're a vital part of what we get to do, and certainly do appreciate you, your skills, and your dedication. I know many of you have been working in this district a long time. Some of you I know my brother Rick Patrick, who worked with you for a lot of time, so I've known you for those many years, and so I know that you have, it's not just a recent dedication, that you've been with our district for many, many, many years. And I know the hard work that you do, and it does not go unnoticed. And I'm glad that you're here today, that we can recognize you in person, so thank you.
And to the whole crew, I know that these don't know this, but for all you guys, I know it's really tough working with John Myers for all these many, many years.
Well, I have to agree with Mr. Heinley there, John. I saw John come in early. He was here early too. So, but Mr. Chambers, Dr. White, thank you for taking this time to recognize our employees. I know this is a group that works hard behind the scenes. I know I've come in contact with many of them when I'm walking schools and all that, see them out there working hard to get things done. It's a team effort, and again, this is just a small portion of the maintenance people who are here this morning. There's a lot more out there that are working right now. But I think this is a good thing, taking time to recognize all of our employees in different ways. But bringing them to a board meeting, I think, is definitely the way to go, because people can see the faces that are behind the scenes here. So, Mr. Bolton, Mr. McElroy, all of you out there, thank you for what y'all do, and keep up the good work.
Well, and I'll just add, a lot of times the public, they don't really understand, they don't know all the work that goes in behind the scenes. I mentioned a name from long ago, Mr. Duke Clark. Some of y'all might have known Mr. Clark when he was heading up maintenance, and then before that, Mr. Gardner, and all that. And I always knew how important maintenance was, and all those years I was out there in those schools, whenever something broke or I needed help with electrical or plumbing or air conditioning, I mean, you name it. And I know that you guys were one call away, and y'all showed up, and you always helped me, and you kept those kids cool, and you kept the lights on and the water running and all those things you have to do when you got all those youngsters there in that school. And so I'll just tell you, I'm certainly grateful, and I know these board members are, and the public is too, even though if they don't know it, because maybe now they do know it. But thank you, thank all of you. Superintendent?
Thank you. And I want to end with something I'm pretty passionate about right now. And I want to start off by saying, so we're in our third week of school. And I think we've gotten off to a smooth start of the school year. And I will acknowledge that things can always be smoother. And when you look at bus routes, when you look at car rider lines, when you look at lunch lines, at the beginning of the year, there's processes that schools are going through. There's going through their routines. And I know the first week of school, for example, car rider lines may have taken an hour on that first day. That second day, it was 40 minutes. On that third day, it was 30 minutes, and then it's down to its 20 minutes, and that varies school to school. You look at the bus routes that took much longer the first week that have now been trimmed down, adjustments made. You look at lunch lines, the same thing. And each year we go through this. And I just want to say I very much appreciate our teachers, our staff, our administrators, our district staff for making those adjustments. I would love to say that next school year, in the first week of school, the first 2 weeks of school, that everything's going to be 100% smooth. It's not going to be. There's going to be adjustments that are made. And I want to take a moment just to discuss some incidents, maybe you call it, or even the first 2 weeks of school. And you look at, I'll go back again to transportation as a topic. I'll go to our exceptional student education population, our ESE students, as a topic. I'll look at student safety, employees in school, and different school incidences. And one thing I would love to say, first of all, everyone has their right to share what they want to share. Everybody has their right to freedom of speech. Everybody has their right to the format in which they would love to share that information. And sometimes this information goes out on social media. And I think for some folks, that's the way to do it. And one thing I would say that I would encourage folks to do is reach out to your school, reach out to your teacher, reach out to your principal, reach out to the district office. In more cases than not, when you reach out to your school, situations are handled. In more cases than not, when you reach out to the district staff, situations are handled. And sometimes, and even many times in certain cases, when situations are handled through social media, what starts out as an incident of fact, as the minutes go by, as the hours go by, the fact goes into the facts are gone. And now it's a situation where folks are venting and they have the right to vent, but not necessarily all the accurate information is getting out there. And again, more times than not, we can handle these situations at the school level and even the district level. I do want to mention a couple situations. So we had a transportation issue the first week of school, and we had a bus that was overcrowded, and it was overcrowded, and we should have handled that on the front side. But one of the things I'll say is when you roll up to pick up students on the first day, many times on the first day, the bus stops are not as large because there are families that will drive their students to school. When you get to the second day and the third day, that's where you get more of an understanding of what those bus stops are. So we had a situation where the bus was overcrowded, and it was. But what did we do? So that morning bus route, we found out that it was overcrowded. The bus driver did a great job of dealing with that situation, communicated with the transportation department. We also communicated with the transportation department at the district level. And by the time the afternoon route was there, the bus was no longer overcrowded. The adjustment was made. The families were contacted, and individuals who made social media posts about it, which is their right to do so, we contacted those individuals as well. So in less than 12 hours, the situation was remediated, and in less than a couple hours, we had communicated with families. Now, does everything always happen that quickly? Not necessarily, but the goal is to make adjustments. We had a situation where on social media last week, Choctaw was changing their name. Choctaw was now going to become the Warriors, and all of this conversation was occurring. Well, Choctaw's not changing their name. No one has mentioned about Choctaw changing their name, but all of this out there. We had a situation with a particular student that was out there, which garnered a lot of attention. I was messaged, I contacted that person, we had a great conversation, and the situation was handled. So I say all that to say that everyone has the right to communicate in however it is that they would like. I would encourage folks, if they communicate with the schools, if they communicate with myself, more times than not, we're able to handle it. But there are times when folks call the district office and just shared information with you. And if they call the district office wanting me, I'll speak with them. We're very accessible, but sometimes we will also get them to the department that can help them. And so they don't necessarily speak with me right away. It goes to the department that can help them. So that's to expedite the situation and to get the questions answered as quickly as possible. And I have a team that I depend on and very much appreciate what they do each and every day. Parents, community members, citizens, I say all the time, we're blessed to live where we are. We're supported, unlike many school districts across the state. We have great, great families, great, great citizens. So just definitely appreciate what they do. And the last thing I want to say is, let's talk about student safety. And there are times when students make poor choices, and let's just say that threats are made. So we do handle those as well. I think this board has shown, we have shown zero tolerance for anyone that makes threats against our students or our employees. And when those things happen, there are processes that we have to go through. There's state and federal law that we have to abide by, but we have a zero tolerance policy for those who like to make threats against our students or our employees. But there are things that we have to do along the way. So just wanted to share that information with the board, wanted to share that information with those who might be watching this meeting. Very much appreciate all the input that we get, very much appreciate the communication that we have, and just want to make sure that we do it in the most efficient way so we can help students, we can help families. And our school district employees, our teachers, staff, and administrators, cannot thank them enough. When they get up every single day, it's about how can I make a difference in the lives of kids. We're not going to be perfect, but we are going to strive to truly make a difference, and just wanted to share that, Dr. White.
Yes, sir. Very good. Thank you.
Could I comment to that, please? I appreciate you saying that. The first thing I want to say about social media is when that one particular instance of a bus that was overcrowded, when that goes out and it begins to build, it appears that every bus is that way, and it's not. It's usually a single incident, but social media makes it look like that is what's happening everywhere, and that's another problem with that. And the other thing I want to speak to is phone calls, because oftentimes I'll get a phone call or message or an email as a board member. And of course, as I believe the public knows by now, we've stated, this board does not run the day-to-day activities of this school district. That is you and your staff. However, I certainly represent the public, and so what generally happens is, again, I will get them to the right resources that they need. Sometimes people get aggravated, I'll just say with me, because I don't jump up and get, all crazy on let's do it. But all I can do is get them to the right, and sometimes it takes a little time. Just like you said, you cannot respond to every single phone call immediately, when the bottom line is they need to get to the person who handles that, and not be the middleman, so to speak. So again, we are all very receptive to speaking with the public, but it's mainly our job to make sure you get to, because the bottom line, we all want to solve the problem, and that makes it the best for students. But it's not for me, or I'll say for other board members, to get in there and get into the workings of what your staff and you are doing day to day. We can only get it to the people who can solve the problem.
And I would just, I'll piggyback off of that. I just want to compliment again, and I know I said this at the last board meeting, how much I appreciate you allowing us to be able to contact your staff directly so we can get that situation done. Talking about bus issue, we had one in my neighborhood, and I was able to reach out to Ryan Gore, and within minutes, he was in contact with that parent. So, so I appreciate the fact that you give us that latitude to be able to reach out and not necessarily have to pull you in right away. I mean, let your staff take care of it. That's why they're out there, to take care of the problems and get them solved. So I do appreciate that, and thank you for the comments too.
And the only thing I'll add is that as elected officials and superintendent, that includes you, I mean, we want to do the right thing. And sometimes it takes a little time to get it all in place and to make it all work. But we understand that the people put us here, and we want to serve and to please and to do right. And so I just appreciate you getting on top of that situation and getting it handled. And I know it's disappointing sometimes when that kind of stuff gets out there and it kind of grows and rolls and gets bigger and bigger, and maybe it's even already taken care of. But that's just kind of the world we live in today. So, but thank you for taking care of all that. All right, anything else, sir?
That is it.
Okay, all right. Okay, so that takes us down to Section 13, Board Members' Announcements, and as customary, I'll just go around the table, and Mr. Heinley, I'll call on you first, sir.
Well, I have no announcements, but I do have something for the board. Dr. Kelly had a tradition, so I'm going to start a tradition.
Okay.
In my household, my kids were required, on the day it was, they had to tell what the president is. So today's the 26th day. So who was the 26th president of the United States? Never stop learning.
So can we come back this after tonight?
Yes, you can.
Is that our,
Hey,
is
hold
that
on a
our
minute.
homework that we will?
Can I Google it?
Did you say Grover Cleveland earlier?
Teddy Roosevelt.
Teddy Roosevelt, that's right. We were actually talking about that.
I was going to say that, but
I didn't want to embarrass anybody and pop
that's
up real
good.
quick.
Learned something today. That's good.
It's good.
I like it.
All right, very good. Is that all, sir?
That's it.
All right, Ms. Vancheck.
Yes. Okay. Well, first of all, you see us we're dressed a little bit differently today. Last few years, we've kind of made a little bit of tradition on the last meeting in August as school's going that we dress to represent our the high school that we represent in our district, and just in the spirit of support and getting that going. So we all have our colors on today, and you brought the megaphone, which is, that's the bottom line there, so that's good. So that's why we're dressed like this today, so it's kind of fun. And I want to talk about the Harbor Hype. Congratulations to Crestview for winning the Spirit Stick. But I want you to know that all our students did a great job out there. This was Baker's first time to participate. They were a little shy about getting in there, feeling a little bit intimidated by the other bigger schools, but they got out there and did great. And I'm very proud of them for participating. It's a great event. And even though it is real, right there at the beginning of the year, it still kind of gets us going. I was excited to be there, and big turnout.
I think it's the largest, well, it is, third one, and that was the largest one that we've had so far.
Lots of people
A
down in the
lot of
harbor,
school
so,
spirit.
yeah, it was great. The other thing is, I appreciate the invitation to attend the State Board of Education meeting here, and it was a really good meeting, and Mr. Superintendent, you did a great presentation about what's going on in our district. And I was sitting watching that, and even though I've been on this board through all the things you were talking about, I was impressed. Because when you compile it and see it, we talk about different things, but when it was compiled, and I was watching the faces of those board members to see what they were thinking, and I know they did make some comments to you about Purple Star schools and different things. I could tell that they were very impressed with what we're doing in Okaloosa County, and I know you have to feel proud about that, as I was sitting there. I think they really enjoyed visiting here, and I hope that they'll come back, because sometimes I think like they forget that we're over here and doing such great things. So thank you for that and for what a great show it was for your staff. And I know you've already appreciated them and everything, but I enjoyed it and was thrilled to see that they were very nice. I met the board members. It was good. So thank you. The next thing is I want to congratulate Ms. Shauna Christ, who is the media specialist over at Plough Elementary. Tonight, she's going to be inducted into the Okaloosa County Women's Hall of Fame. And Ms. Christ is no stranger to winning a lot of awards because in working with our district, she has not only been the district's Teacher of the Year, the district's Volunteer of the Year, and the district's Support Employee of the Year. So this is just another feather in her cap, but I'm very proud of her and the things she does. And if you've ever met her, you know that she is passionate about what she does for students in any of those roles that she's ever had. So I'm very happy to congratulate her on this next award that she's getting. The next thing is the Public Schools Foundation. Want to go ahead and tell everybody the date for our signature fundraiser event, which is called Burgers and Bingo, and that's going to happen on October 15th at the Clubhouse Grill in Fort Walton. That's always one of our big events that we raise money for scholarships and other things for our students. And finally, I want to mention that the Emerald Coast Science Center, which the director is Diane Frazier, who works a lot with our district, have different field trips and everything. She's fabulous. They're doing a Women in Science conference coming up on September 17th. And this is ladies of all ages and so forth, but they're offering the middle school and high school girls that want to come to that free to come to this on September 17th. And it takes place in the evening, so those students can come. And they have female speakers who are in STEM fields. They're going to talk to them how they can get in that, and that's very exciting. And I'm just so glad that that opportunity is there. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Evanchik. Mr. Bryan?
Thank you, Dr. White. Before I go into my announcements, I do want to publicly announce that I will not be at the October 9th or the September 9th board meeting due to the fact that I will be representing the state of Florida with the Florida School Boards Association. Typically, I'm not in an executive role, but in this case, being the president, I felt it was necessary to be a part of that that collaboration with the group of us that are going to go. So I will not be at the workshop or the meeting that night. And I also want to extend to Ms. Gardner, thank you for filling in for the construction meeting. As Ms. Evanchik said, you know, they had the state board meeting here the other day. I was able to stay for a little bit of it. I had other commitments. But one of Crestview High School students was recognized with the Leadership Award, and that was presented by Commissioner Diaz. Javian Parks from Crestview High School got that. I know looking at the pictures and actually watching the video of the meeting itself, he was really excited about that. So Javian's been through a lot, but he's a good kid, and I was really excited to see that. As Ms. Evanchik said, the Crestview High School won the Spirit Award. I can only imagine how loud it was down there. It's I unfortunately was unable to go, but the last couple of years, that place gets loud. And, you know, these drum lines that they put out there, it just echoes throughout the Harbor Walk Village there. But I can only imagine how much fun everybody had. But, you know, it's always great to see the Bulldogs come out on top there. And I would like to also shout out to my Laurel Hill family. As y'all know, I represent 2 high schools. And Laurel Hill one day might have a football team, but they don't. So when basketball season rolls around, I'll be wearing my Laurel Hill colors just to represent them because it is football season for everybody else. And Crestview got off to a good start with a nice win, 42-7 against Milton. And so really excited about that. And also, Mr. Chambers, when we did our town hall meetings with the students at the end of last year, we've always included Laurel Hill and Crestview together. And our Laurel Hill students ask about weight equipment. And I know Crestview had some that they weren't going to use anymore, but one of our community leaders out there, Temple Fitness, donated a whole bunch of weight equipment to Laurel Hill School. And as soon as I get up there and am able to take some pictures of it, I'm sure the school will put something out eventually, what the equipment was. So I just wanted to say thank you to Temple Fitness for donating their used equipment. I understand they got a whole bunch of new equipment, but their used equipment's going to go to good use, because if you've not been up to Laurel Hill School, their weight room is probably not even a third of this here. But the weight equipment they had in there was very old, but really excited to see this for them as we continue to make all the great improvements up at the school. And with that, I appreciate the opportunity to make the announcements.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bryant. Ms. Gardner?
Well, I'd like to start out by congratulating Mr. Parker Destin. He's out in the audience today. He will be your new District 2. He'll take my place. And he and I have been talking some. I've got your budget books right here for you and a few other things. I know Parker's going to do an excellent job. I know him since kindergarten, and I know I've been talking with his mother, who was a first grade teacher with us for years, and she's going to be in one of his ears. I will be in the other ear. So, Parker, glad you're here, and we'll get you through it, we promise.
Very much looking forward to it.
Yeah. His mom, Becky, was, again, first grade teacher with us at Destin, outstanding teacher, and got that elementary person still right there, making sure, like I said, Miss Destin will be on one side, I'll be on the other, and he'll probably quit taking my phone calls. Also, I just want to congratulate and recognize all of the football teams that played Thursday night or Friday night. The players that are participating, they work during the summer, the parents, the community, and I was looking and reading through some articles where high schools are having to cancel their football seasons because the students are not staying with it. I mean, they would have 1 or 2 seniors and 1 or 2 freshmen, and how sad that would be that, a high school, a community would not have a football team, especially when you sit back and watch Hype on the Harbor. And that was, Mr. Bryant, one of the loudest. But not only were the students out there and the band members, but the parents, goodness gracious, they were a little scary there for a moment. But to see the community come together and support our football teams, we couldn't do it without our parents and community. Again, Mr. Boswell stepped in for the baseball side of it. So just thank you. I mean, I just really appreciate it. And to those players that are in that record-breaking heat to be out there to play. I think that's it. Yeah, and thank you, Ms. Vancheck, for reminding us to wear our shirts so we can have a little fun up here.
All right, thank you, Ms. Gardner, and I'll reserve my remarks for this evening, and that takes us now to 14.1. That'll be the ending public comment, and that brings us to adjournment. There are no public meetings this evening, and so unless there's anything else, Superintendent, Mr. McInnes, anything we need to do here? Staff, anything? Associations, anything? All right. This meeting is adjourned.